He's making this horrible sound. It's just that, ooh, just a painful sound. And then it would stop. And as he's talking to the old man, he notices that the dog in the background is still making the sound. Ooh. And again, I have the audience participant actually make the sound for me while he's on stage. And finally he has to ask the old man, he said, sir, why is your dog making that sound? The old man looks at the dog, looks right back at him and says, son, he's laying out a tack. He says matter-of-factly. And now the stranger's puzzled by this response, but he has to ask, right? So he finally asks, well, sir, if he's sitting on a tack, why doesn't he get up? Old man looks at the stranger and says, son, you don't understand. He said the tack hurts him, but not enough to make him want to get up and do something about it. Not enough to make him want to get up and do something about it. And I use this as an analogy because in life, we don't make this woo sound when things aren't going our way. We whine. That's what we do. We whine. Things are uncomfortable, like the tack, but we whine instead of taking action and changing our situation. In other words, a lot of people we know, we have friends, Richard, who come to us with a complaint, and you swear that you've heard that complaint before last year. It's the same complaint remanufactured every year. They never take any action. As I always say, they never get off their south side if they want to go to the north side of success. And a lot of people, instead of getting up off the tack that's uncomfortable, will sit there and whine about their circumstance. In sales, it's no different. If you want to be successful, stop complaining about what you don't have or the commissions you don't receive or the clients you haven't pursued or gotten, and get off your south side if you want to go to the north side of success. And I think unless you take action and get off your backside, you're not going to be successful. And I think that's where a lot of salespeople fail. And let me just point out that there is a difference, and we've all heard this, and I'm just repeating what we've heard, is that there's a difference between activity and progress. Would you agree with me, Richard?
For sure.
Yeah, a lot of people go through the motions of activities, of doing something just to keep busy and say they're actually selling. Then there's people who are actually making progress, who basically mapped out what market they're going after, who know what their customers want, and who know how to sell to that market. These are the people who are making progress. But you have a choice. Every salesperson has a choice. Every day that you get up in the morning, you have a choice, and the choice is this simple. You can either choose to lay there on the tack of your inability to move, or you can get up off of it and start making things happen. And I think action, as you know, what makes everything happen.
That hound dog story was so funny when I had heard it originally, and it's so prevalent in much of our society. I hate to say that, but we find ourselves in a situation we don't want to do anything about it. The pain's not so bad, but it's bad enough to complain a little bit. Then taking it to the next step and talking about activity versus progress, in our day-to-day lives, we find so many people creating busy work even for themselves, whether it's, I'm doing some prospecting now. Well, what form of prospecting are you doing? Well, I'm searching in the yellow pages or the white pages for people to call. Okay, and if that's what you're going to do, great. But what group are you targeting? Well, I haven't gotten quite there yet, but I'm definitely this is what I'm going to do. And we create a lot of busy work or activity work, but we're not necessarily making progress to our end goal, which is be successful in sales. So, I mean, that was right on target. Perfect.
And I think it's key that people just begin to focus in on what they want. I, as a sales trainer, my primary market, I was the torpedo. I defined my market, and given my background, I told myself, I am going to go after primarily the high-tech sector. If you go to my website, High Tech Selling, it's hitechselling.com, you'll see that I aim everything primarily at a specific market. And like you, I don't look at the yellow pages for my leads because I'm not going to find any there that are worth anything.
Exactly.
What I do is I find my market, I find out what they're reading, I found out what bulletin boards or newsletters they're receiving, and that's what I target. That's where I do my advertising. That's how I focus in, and that's how you become successful within your niche.
Absolutely. You're hanging out where they're hanging out.
You got it. You got it, Richard.
If you had to choose just one skill, just one, that you would attribute to your success in sales, what would it be? Remember, just one attribute.
Just one. It would have to be the art of communication. When I first started out in selling, one of the organizations I joined that I recommend every salesperson join if you haven't done this is the Toastmasters organization. I don't know if you're familiar with the organization.
Absolutely.
Toastmasters is a speaking organization. They teach you how to speak. And I thought I was a pretty good speaker. I thought I had a good gift of the gab until I got to Toastmasters. And they started counting my uhs, my ums, how I fidgeted with my hands, my body language, everything, all the mechanics of selling, because we're like almost 80% visual when we see something as far as that will attract our interest. And if you're selling, and I'm not talking about cold calling and prospecting over the phone, I'm talking about when you get there to the customer's office and you got to make the sale. You have to be good. You have to be smooth. You have to be polished. You have to be able to present and sell the concept. We all know that sales is a transference of enthusiasm. If I can get you excited about my product and feel like I feel, I know you're going to buy it because you understand what I'm talking about. You start gritting your teeth. You understand. And that's what you want. And the one thing I think many salespeople, and I've seen a lot of salespeople who are just the worst presenters. You look at them on paper. They got great credentials. They got the great marketing package. They got great advertising. Then all of a sudden you put them in front of an audience or bring them in front of yourself to look at them, and they can't sell. And unless you can sell, unless you know how to do that, really communicate, build a rapport, you're going to have a hard time selling. And that's the one thing that I think has attributed to my success. I joke about this, Richard, but this is true what I'm about to tell you. I graduated college with a 2.63 grade point average. 2.63. Now, negative people listening to this will probably go, well, that's not too good. And positive people say, well, that's perfect. See, negative people will see it as a C minus or something. Positive people will see it as a B minus, I think, because they'll look at it more positively. But I wasn't the brightest bulb when I graduated. I was competing with guys who had almost 4.0s when I graduated from college. And when I got into the working world, I had people who were much smarter than me. But there was one thing that I could do better than most of them because I had trained and I could out-present most people. I could out-present my peers. When we went into major presentations and they were looking for the go-to guy, the sixth man off the bench, I usually got those presentation slots because they said, no, send Victor, let Victor do the presentation. And it was my ability to sell people on a concept.
That's, in today's day and age, I think a lot of people have lost that art. And from a skill set perspective, being able to understand what your core objective is in communicating that presentation, whether you're in auto sales as well as real estate sales or insurance sales or stockbrokers, there's a target audience, and whether that's somebody that's just stepped onto our showroom floor and we need to show them the latest features of the newest model vehicle on our lot, being able to take those sharpened skills, and we always hear the saying sharpen the saw continually. One recommendation that you just made that I hope every one of these listeners jump on board with is going out and joining Toastmasters. There are fantastic organizations out there.
I think especially, Richard, as you mentioned, if you're let's take the example of a salesman on the showroom floor. What better place, to actually demonstrate how well you can present a product and have a car in front of you and talk about it? And I got to tell you the story. I went to buy a car. I decided to buy a car. I won't tell you the car model, but I went to decided on a certain model, and I remember I was in Miami, and I went downtown Miami to buy this car. I got there, and I tell the gentleman, I'd like to look at this car. And I said, can you tell me a little bit about it as I'm standing in front of the car? He says, well, it's made in, this country, and it drives smoothly. It gets this much, miles per gallon. I go, thinking, I know this already because I saw it on the Internet. I said, what else? And he says, well, it's got a couple other features, but he was very superficial about the features. And then he said, well, let's get in and drive. And so we get in and drive, has a smooth drive. And I'm asking